Hello and welcome to Take 5 with Sachs, where we take a break from the busyness of life and share some important topics that impact your business and your life. My name is Todd Polinak, and with me is my partner, Craig Wikipedia Casano, Winky for short. And today we have our resident expert, Edvin Givargis, who is our SALT leader, and we'll talk about what SALT is in a minute. Edwin is going to bring a very candid update on what's happening on the state and local tax front. But before we get to that interview, I wanted to ask Winky if he has anything that we should know about, some things we may not know about on SALT, state and local taxes. Winky, take it away.
Thank you, Todd. So before we give Ed the stage, I'm going to share a couple of fun facts as I do with our listeners. So in recent news, New Jersey has been ranked the top state for outbound moves by its residents for a third consecutive year. About 70% of the state's moves have been outbound moves. And while retirement and lifestyle have been amongst the reasons, surveys are also revealing that those with the highest income levels are amongst those exiting the state, with taxes and overall cost of living driving the move. Many former New Jersey residents, as well as residents of other high income tax jurisdictions, such as New York and California, for example, and also coincidentally ranking high on the top outbound states list, are taking advantage of the new normal and relocating themselves and their families to lower or no income tax states, such as Florida, Texas, and Wyoming. Now, it's imperative that you speak with your Sachs advisory team to discuss any potential changes in tax residency in order to avoid possible pitfalls. A quick final fact. 3 of the top states hit the hardest in the tourism department as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic have been Hawaii, Nevada, and Montana, with Vermont, Massachusetts, and Florida right behind them. Definitely no surprise there given what we know about those states and what they have to offer. There you have it. That's me winking at you.
Hey, thank you, Craig. I wanted to welcome Edvin to this opportunity to tell us everything that we want to know about SALT, but we're afraid to ask. Edvin, welcome to the program for today.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. And on that last note there, that was a domicile and residency issue, which has been a hot topic for about 3 years, but happy to get there. So
awesome.
Where do we begin?
So let's begin with the, you're actually right now, I think, physically present in the great state of California, correct?
Yes.
And so I know that we have a whole bunch of different things to talk about in California, but if you move it as east as possible, what are you seeing as far as potential changes in the East Coast, especially the tri-state area where we are right now? What legislation, what potential changes in the state and local tax laws might impact the people who may be listening to this today?
You know, in the realm of state and local tax, the easier question to ask is, what's not changing?
Okay, that's good. What's not changing?
Right, and that would be the shorter answer. But with respect to what is changing, what's going to be different, you know, in the area of state and local tax, year after year, everything changes. And really, what's been an accelerant to that are the federal tax law changes, TCJA, the CARES Act. That has been a big change in the federal arena, which has created aftershocks in the multi-state world. So to answer the question, what's changed, I would say, Todd, it'd be easier to say what has stayed the same. So we have so much to cover, I don't even know where to begin.
We'll start alphabetically, start with A and work your way down through Z.
Well, to kick it all off, you know, we'll talk about state nexus. And for those familiar with state tax concepts, they'll note that nexus is one of the fundamental concepts in state and local tax. When the pandemic began back in I don't remember, 2020, there were a lot of folks at companies moving to a work from home model. And at that time, a lot of states came out and said, look, to the extent that your people are in a state where the company has never done business, they're working from home, we will give you this COVID-19 telework exemption. And surprisingly enough, New Jersey was one of the first states that said, if your employee is working in our state due to COVID, then you don't have Nexus. And Nexus is important because as a company, if you have Nexus, you have a filing obligation. Not just filing, but you are wholesale subject to that state's taxing regime, whether it's income, franchise, gross receipts, property, payroll, sales, use, transfer, tax. You're subject to those taxes. And now, I want to say post-COVID, but it's hard to say post-COVID because now we are in the era of Omicron.
Yeah.
We still have companies that have employees working from home due to concerns about the virus, but we have states that are now repealing their COVID Nexus exposure relief. Now, we have some states like Alabama that have never opined on whether having a temporary employee in Alabama creates Nexus. My home state, California, gave relief to any company having an employee in the state up until June 1st, 2021. Other states like DC, for example, no guidance. New Jersey was one of the first states that said, look, if you're a company and your employees work in our state because of COVID, we're going to say you don't have Nexus, which is very generous. But New Jersey's provision on remote COVID employees ended on October 1st, 2021. So now we're in the year 2022. Well, COVID hasn't left. It's still here. And people are still working remote, but the Nexus relief provided by the state expired.
Yikes.
Yeah. So what's the outcome of that? We're going to have a lot of clients. We're going to have a lot of taxpayers, companies that may have had a big mobile workforce that was exempted from Nexus that are no longer exempt from Nexus now. And these are issues they need to consider. So what do? I don't know. How long is this going to go? We don't know. But I think to anyone listening to this, the key takeaway is you need to really look at every state where you have remote workers and understand what COVID Nexus relief provisions look like.
Edvin, if we can springboard off of this and specifically jump off of some of the pitfalls that I was discussing and kind of my lead in, a lot of clients of mine, particularly during the heavy COVID times and now spilling into 22 as well, are looking to do a change in tax residency, right? And a lot of what we're seeing are moves from New Jersey for New Jersey clients, moves from New York, and obviously I'm sure you're seeing a bunch in California as well. And folks are migrating to more favorable income tax states. In addition to that, a lot of clients are under the assumption that changing driver's license, changing where they register to vote, things of that nature are sufficient. Can you speak a bit about some of the hurdles that are related to changing tax residency, both in the form of domicile as well as statutory residency?
Sure. That question, Craig, takes us into the area of residency change. But the key issue there is not really residency, because a taxpayer can be a resident of more than one state. You can be a resident of 5 states, but the key issue is domiciliary status. And if you look through law, domiciliary status really defines where you have your deepest and greatest roots. That's what you have to peel away, because you can only have one domicile, but you can have multiple residences. So for a taxpayer that wants to leave New Jersey and go to Florida, for example. They can do very basic stuff to be a resident of Florida, but in the same breath, they can still be deemed to be a resident and domiciliary of New Jersey, their former home. So the key issue there is really domiciliary status. If you're leaving New Jersey to go to Florida, you want to change your domicile. Now, the issue of changing domicile is really a facts and circumstances based issue. And on audit, we have to apply the known evidentiary standards. For us tax folks, we say it's more likely than not that their facts and circumstances point to a domiciliary standard in Florida. In the legal world, that's the preponderance of the evidence. And what does all of that mean? Everything I said has absolutely no meaning until I say this. When we get into the world of determining domiciliary status, we have to look at intent. That's the key. How do you prove intent? Do you ask the person what their intent is? Well, they can lie, right? So how do you prove another person's intent? What do? Craig, I'll throw that to you. How do you prove intent?
I would say that actions are going to dictate intent 9 out of 10 times.
Exactly. Actions. So would it be fair for me to say consideration of all of the facts and circumstances?
Absolutely.
So let's say hypothetically, I have a client that owns a $15 million mansion in New Jersey. They go to Florida and rent a condo for $1,000 a month. And the taxpayer says, I'm a Florida resident now. What does that say about their intent?
They're lying.
Yeah, not a good fact pattern. So when you're dealing with an audit in this area, auditor comes to you and says, oh, wow, you have a $25 million mega mansion in New Jersey. And then you quote unquote moved to Florida and got yourself a $1,500 a month apartment. Do you truly believe that? I'm going to believe that you change residence. What makes this fact pattern even more difficult is that the same taxpayer that claims to have left to Florida still has their wife and children living in the mega mansion in New Jersey. Kids are going to school in New Jersey. Wife is connected to her job and social connections in New Jersey, and husband that was anticipating a liquidation of their business and claim that Florida was my residence. So as an auditor, and I want you gentlemen to put your auditor cap on right now. You have a taxpayer that owns a $100 million home in New Jersey. A wife and kids live in New Jersey, go to school in New Jersey, and taxpayer claims to be a domiciliary and resident in New Jersey, living in a $2,000 a month condo or apartment in New Jersey. Would you believe that is a true domiciliary change?
I'm going to have to say no.
Yeah, I'm also going to say no. So that's where we are. Residency change, domicile change has been the hot topic for the last 4 years.
So Edvin, that's about the amount of time that we have for today. Thank you, Edvin, Craig, and our audience today. Again, this is a time that we want to share with you our best practices. And thank you, Edvin. Wanted to wish everyone a happy and great day and a great new year, since this is the first one for 2022. So take care, folks.